Okay, so I know we had a little break. I wanted to start, we said we're going to start with one alaha. You remember? Alaha is the how to, right? We have the spiritual stuff. Why am I doing things? And then we have the actually how do I. So last time we read the first one. We're learning right now the first book of Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and we're learning the first alaha. We're learning the laws of pertaining and rising in the morning. When you wake up in the morning, what are you supposed to do? So we learned one. Today we're going to read two. So it says, similarly, when lying on the bed, a person should realize before whom he's lying, right? A lot of times we lay in the bed and we're like, oh, another 20 minutes, another 5 minutes, right? Um, and what are you doing with your time? Why are you laying on the bed? Are you on your phone, right? Your phone should not even be in your room, which is a whole different, try to convince 2023 someone not to have the phone in their room, right? I remember when the phones came out, I went on Amazon and I bought all my kids like a regular clock, right? Yeah, I wonder if those are being used. Immediately upon rising from sleep, he should recall the kindness which God blessed be he performed for him, returning his soul. It means at night we went to sleep. It says that the neshama of the person splits itself into 60 parts. 50 nights go up to Hashem, 1/60th remains with you. This 60th, 1/60th is what keeps you alive and breathing, right? What comes instead of your soul? There's never, what is your soul? Your soul is a part of Hashem. And this is a part of Hashem that is holy. When it goes up to Hashem, godliness, it doesn't, your body doesn't stay empty. Something else comes instead. And this is called Ruach Tuma. Ruach means an air, Tuma means impure. It's an impure. Why? Because your body is not fully 100% alive per se. So what are you waking up in the morning to? When your neshama comes in the morning, it pushes out this ruach tuma, and now your neshama is fully back in. What was your neshama doing? This is not written here. I'm just giving you the background. Neshama is kind of doing cheshbon with Hashem. What did I do? How was my day? Right? It's like accounting. Now your soul comes back. It pushes the neshama out, and the tuma leaves you completely, but it remains on your nails in your hands. This is where it remains. There's few explanations why. One explanation is because this is the part of your body that has the least amount of life. The second explanation is, I'm sure there are more that I'll share with you today, is because your body is, when we learn the story about Adam and Eve, it says that Adam and Eve were naked, and all of a sudden they ate from the tree of knowledge, and all of a sudden they realized they were naked. But 5 minutes before they didn't. What happened in between that time? So one explanation is the idea that they internalized negativity, evil in their psychic. All of a sudden, they saw a different connotation of that same body that is holy. The second idea is that they were completely covered with nails and everything fell, but it remains on our toes and our hands. And if we think about it, going to a third point, I know I'm going deeper, but okay, is that we have that kior, that vessel that was made with the mirrors that the women in Egypt were looking at themselves, beautifying themselves to attract their husbands. What these mirrors were used for? They were used in the Bitachon, in the Mishkan, to make the vessel through which the Kohanim wash their hands before the service to Hashem. So I'm giving you three, I'm going deeper into three layers, but just for you to understand why is it so important, right? There's many layers. It's not just because I woke up in the morning, I gotta wash my hands. There's a reason why. So he entrusts his soul to God, tired at night, and God returns to him that renewed soul and rested, so that he can carry out the service with all the potential and serve him the entire day. So at night you're exhausted, right? I remember last night I was like, oh, I can't function, right? You wake up, you sleep even 6 hours. Sometimes you take a cat nap 20 minutes and you're like, right, what's happening in sleep? You're restoring, right? This is the totality of man's purpose of existence. What is the totality of man's existence? Is the potential to serve him, Hashem, a whole day. And how do you get your energy? By sleeping at night. So it comes and stays, and it says, renew in the morning, great is your faithfulness. This implies that every morning a person is renewed as a new creation. You're not the same person that was there yesterday. You're a new and improved person. Therefore, he should thank God, blessed be he, for this is all in his heart. While he's still on bed, he should recite Modani. I offer thanks to you, living and eternal King, for having mercifully restored my soul within me. Great is your faithfulness. This may be recited even though one's hands are not clean, for this does not contain any of Hashem's names. one should pause slightly between the words behembla and then raba emunateja. Mercifulness and great is your faithfulness. Okay? So those are that's we're going on to Alaha 3. We're going to wait for that for next week. But you saw we just read one Alaha and how many layers we were able to learn. I said one time many years ago, so I don't think most of you know, maybe Leah will remember the idea of modernity scientifically. Remember the scientific?
Scientifically, to avoid falling down or being dizzy, you got to get up really slowly in order you don't fall down. It's called orthostatic hypotension. So, and the modernity has just a right amount of work to sit to gather yourself in order not to get up so quickly.
So scientifically, they prove that you need 14 seconds. And how many seconds we have? 12 12 seconds. So we have 12 words. So corresponding to the 12 seconds, that takes you to say the modernity. So it's just an interesting take on that. Okay. Anybody remembers where we were left off 2 weeks ago? Test yes or no. Okay. So we were learning about the grace of trust, and I said that we're going to be going very slow only until we finish the introduction, and then we're gonna go faster. And the reason is because we are basically uprooting our false beliefs and we are putting in our proper beliefs. We are uprooting our secular way of thinking and we are bringing in a Jewish way of thinking, right? And we said one time that Judaism is not a religion, it's not a box that you check on the form. What is Judaism for you? It's a way of life, it's a lifestyle, okay? So we were learning the gate of trust, Shaar Bitachon. We were saying that Bitachon gives us the 10 benefits. 5 are Torah matters and 5 are worldly matters. And we were delving into the 5 Torah matters, which are the spiritual ones. We spoke about tranquility and we spoke about independence, not to serve any other entity, if you remember. Today we're going to start with a peace of mind. I'm going to take a couple of minutes just to jump back and give you, for those of you who are new here today, to just give you some, like a backdrop of where we're going to go from here. Okay. So for some people who don't have really, we were speaking about the different things. We were speaking about worry-free living and how do we achieve that? And why is our default setting not to give us tranquility? It's because we put our trust in anything else but Hashem. And the second thing, we were speaking about independence. So going in, and then I'm going to go deeper. I'll do a summary in just a few minutes. What was independence? We were speaking about the idea that we are other-centered. Really. We are I-centered when it comes to things that I want, right? I want to sleep, I want to eat, I want this bag, I want whatever it is. But we're other-centered when it comes to being liked, right? People care, right? Most of the fashion billion-dollar industry, it's because I care what I wear. I care how I look. I care what right? The sunglasses from last year no longer fit the trend of whatever, right? It's like when I go to my nails, which I need to go, the girl says, Miss, you want the new colors? I'm like, what's wrong with the colors from last season? There's nothing wrong. It's the same green, the same blue, the same pink, the same whatever it is, right? So this idea that we need to conform to something is kind of like a mirage. It's something that is not really a Jewish concept. And that's where we left off last time. Is it a Jewish concept or no? How do we apply it to our lives? So then we went on to say that for some people, we ended last time by saying, let me just backtrack for 1 second, because I think this is going to remind you better. We were speaking about relying on our wealth, and we were speaking about the idea that when we rely on our wealth, we could rely on many things. One is our ability. I could make the money. Is it true? Yes or no? A person could work 100 hours a week and still not make money. Or a person could make, there's many levels how that's not really true. Also, a person could make $1 million and he could lose it, right? Stock market, '08, clear picture. Also, a person could have all this money and not enjoy it. That was another level that I spoke about it. And I told you about my vacation that my husband took me to this beautiful place, but I wasn't feeling well, so I couldn't even enjoy. I'm just summarizing the last points we said to move forward. And then we said that it was never for you. It means sometimes Hashem trusts you with something and then it's passed down to someone else. And then we left it off. We closed the class by saying that a lot of times when a person depends on this money, or my ability to make the money, and if these things, it really becomes the gateway to his destruction. Because we cannot rely in our own abilities, any of the ones I just said, in order for us to bring money. And we ended the class by saying that opposite to the secular world, money in the secular world is compared to what? Greed, somebody who's greedy. For us, money is not nothing to do with greediness, right? And it's interesting because a lot of the anti-Semitism propaganda is that the Jews have the money. Well, we could list a whole line of people who are not Jewish who have a lot of money, right? And we see, is this money really, what is money? Why we have money? Why do we need money? If I were to ask you. For you, what's money?
Exchange.
Exchange.
To buy something that you need
To buy something.
to.
Huh?
It's a tool.
Great answers. Yes, it's a tool. And it's interesting because if you think about it, from all the classes that I have given you, I told you that Hashem wanted to put Adam and Eve in Gan Eden, and he gave them everything. And then he brought the snake, and she pushed, and she ate from the tree, right? You remember I told you the story. Why? Because the purpose that Hashem wanted meant to be part in creation. He didn't want us to be receivers. He wanted us to be givers. He wanted us to exert ourselves on the field of the talent that Hashem gave you, to utilize that as a tool to serve Hashem. So money is not an ultimate thing in itself. Money is a tool through which we serve Hashem, another tool. And it's actually a very important tool in serving Hashem because it's how you develop yourself. It's how you relate to others. It's how you do chesed and give chesed to someone else. It's also how you sustain yourself, obviously. But it's not about me making that money. It's about me connecting to the power of Hashem that enables me to have that money. So now I can use it for a tool to serve Hashem. That's where we left off, okay? So I go on. So for some people who don't have the really healthy relationship with money, with this resource or this tool, and they depend on it. Why? Because they feel that the only way to be able to utilize this resource, the only real way to utilize this resource is through bitachon. If you make it as I could do something, you're losing the point. So now we don't want to be like to have this unhealthy relationship with money. We want to have a healthy relationship with money, and we want to do it bitachon. The question is how we do that. Because most people, if you make how you call this, a poll, and you interview 1,000,000 people, and you say to them, how does money come to you? 1,000,000 minus one maybe will say, well, I go to work. What does that mean? I go to work. It's me. So we need to see that we can rely on our scheme, in our strength, in our money, because we saw from everything that we say that even if you do all this, you could still not even enjoy this money, chas v'shalom, right? So we see from here that the first benefit of trust is living, if you go back to your first paper, is living a worry-free life, right? That was the first thing, which was tranquility. And that we understand that we can only have that when we put our trust in Hashem. What was the second one? And that's where we left off, independence, not to serve any other entity. So what does this mean? And we spoke about briefly about people pleasing and codependency. Why am I giving you a class in psychology? What does that have to do with bitachon? So the reality is that bitachon is really a tool, not only for financial freedom, not only for health, but it's really a tool also for interpersonal relationships. It's how I relate to another person. How so? So we're now moving into we continue at step 2, independence. What does that mean? That I don't need to have a compliment from another person in order, it's like I'm using someone else in order to give me something that I need. It means my good, my health, my mental health, my financial depends on someone else's like or not. Okay? So if we look into our safer, for those of you who have your book, I believe it's on page 11 or 12. I'll tell you in a second. So it's page 11, independence. It says, among the Torah benefits of Bitachon is that trusting God will bring a man not to serve any other entity. Okay? That's where we left off. What does that mean? Another entity, anything besides Hashem is called what? If I serve anything else besides God, what am I serving? Idol, right? Now, it's interesting, very, very interesting, because if you see, and I'm going to quote for you, the world is not standing for truth right now. Perfect example. And I'm not here to speak to us about Hollywood or anything, but it's really about values. And if you all know, it's not written in your book, but I'm sure you all know Angelina Jolie. She's been an incredible human being when it comes to what? To refugees and charity, right? She left Hollywood behind and she spent her own whole, right? Her eyes were open to different reality. Now, does anybody read her post? And I'm not here to make, this is not about her, but it's about something that the world is seeing and the world is following that is affecting each of us directly. She writes, who she's not able to hold her ground because through all these years, her and a million more like her, right? She's being all pro lack of violence. This. What did she write on her post? She see that she says I always do stand for violence, and it says because my work for the last 20 years to reach refugees, my focus is on the people displaced by violence in any context. And she goes on to say, it's interesting that it's interesting that she can stand for the truth because there is no more displacement right now than all the people who lived in the south of Gaza who have no homes, right? Anybody knows the number? Last I heard was 300,000 people, right? Displaced. So she doesn't even think about them, right? She doesn't also speak about the displaced hostages. We have 135 still. She doesn't think about that. She doesn't think about all the families of the people who die, who now's life were shattered forever. Doesn't think about that. She doesn't think about how many people were died. 1,500 by now with the 500 Hayalim, close to 2,000. Doesn't think about that. So it's so one way. So it's interesting because I never reply in social media, hardly unless it's your Mazel Tov, then I do, or I know you. And I actually reply to this because somebody Jewish wrote, which side is she in? Because in the beginning, she's speaking about everything that happened to Jewish people. And then she takes a nice little detour. She's now saying all the atrocities that we're doing. And she goes on to say all these things. And I said, confused. I replied to that, confused. Because if you really understand what the world is all about, you wouldn't have this bias. And that's what number 2 is. It means that we're being biased to an alternative reality because we believe that that alternative reality is going to do anything for us. And the reality is that the alternative reality is not going to do anything for you. It will not. So we see here that a lot of times people put hope in men and they expect that we're going to have different results because of this. And instead of being reliant only on Hashem, we're relying on all these different things. And I don't need to go that far. We could do this in our own stuff because this is about us and how we do it. When we say or when we behave, oh, I need to be nice to this person because this person is going to give me so and so. Or I need to send a gift to so and so because I need to be on the loop. Or when we feel that we must do all these different things because we need to be on the right side of someone because somehow that's going to affect the way my life is. I'm not saying you shouldn't give gifts. I'm not saying you shouldn't be nice. But what is the motive behind your head? Why are you doing this? Are you doing it out of chesed? Are you doing it out of love? Are you doing it because you love this person and you want to buy a beautiful gift? Or you're doing it because what you're gaining by doing this act? Okay? So that's one of the main focuses that he's speaking here on the next level, that we depend only on Hashem and that we have to learn to have healthy boundaries, that we cannot be doing people pleasing. And it's interesting because this people pleasing became $1 billion industry. How do we know that? The reels, the likes. It's interesting. I was speaking to my son the other day and I said, oh, so and so opened this business. I'm so excited. I see they have already 5,000 followers. And he looked at me and he said, when did she open this? I said, I don't know, like 3 months ago. She's like, she doesn't have real 5,000 followers. I said, what do you mean? He says, you buy followers, ma. I said, what? I said, yeah, you buy followers. And I said, what do you mean? It literally opened my eyes. Thank God for kids. And like, what do you mean? He says, yes, ma, people need to feel. You can't open an account and have like 3 followers. So you have to buy followers. It's a multi-billion industry. We don't even, right? I mean, maybe you girls are like super advanced and know all those things. For me, it's like, right? I tell my kids I was not in this last time, maybe next month, right? I don't know. You got to be born again to figure all the stuff out. All right? Because they're born with this. And are we really putting ourselves in this idea that I must have X amount of followers so my life is good? And unfortunately, the opposite is also true. How many lives have been lost because of lack of followers or because of what somebody wrote? How many people have gone out of this world because of the social pressure? So this is so interesting that this book that was written 1,000 years ago, speaking to you and I about the problems that we're dealing with today. I, as you know, I deal with a lot of kids at risk. May we not have. May everybody find healing. And it's so incredibly sad to see that a lot of the kids at risk is because they don't feel liked. They don't feel loved. And here is telling you, it's giving you the antidote before the problem came. You can't put your reliance in someone else's liking of you. You cannot put any benefit on somebody else liking you. Okay? So obviously we have to have Abat Israel. We have to love everybody. All of it is okay, but understand what is the purpose. Another idea is the idea of influencers who don't speak, and they don't speak because they're afraid to lose followers. And there's a very interesting video that I wanted to show you on Instagram. It's a 2-minute video from Rabbi Shmuley Batech's daughter, which I forgot her name. She's very strong in her opinions. She's really good. She's scared. So is here, but she is like in a different level. And she made a reel this week about I don't remember. There was a place that there was women were being raped, Lo Aleinu, in not in Israel, few years back, and she made a reel of all the Hollywood stars who say stood up for it with a sign, and political figure women. And she asked in the end of the video, "Where are you now? Where are you now? Why? Because now, maybe I'm going to lose half of my followers. Maybe it's going to be, they're not standing for the truth." So we see from here that we need to have nothing sugarcoat. You have to be yourself, who you are. And coming to the world, this also gives us it gives us a lot of confidence, because here the Torah, and specifically in this book, is telling us you are okay with the value system that you have. If you put God in front of you, go for it. Hashem is backing you. You don't need this, you don't need that, you don't need the lights, right? So when you call, so when you have to call someone out on their wickedness, can you do it, yes or no? And the answer is yes, because now you have the clarity of who you are, of how you run in Shul. You have Hashem as your compass, as your moral compass. And if whatever is happening in the world does not stand with the moral compass of what the Torah is saying, then you can't stand for it. And it's interesting because he's telling you here. And also the interesting thing, there's this fellow who's not Jewish, I forgot his name, me and names, and he's being very strong pro-Israel. And he's taking all the layers out, all the mirage, everything that people is fake, he's taking out. How about this? And he's going all over the place. So it's interesting because if you think about it, a lot of us are thinking that Israel is in trouble, right? Yes, obviously we are in trouble. We're thinking that Jewish worldwide were in trouble. Yes, so we gotta put up our fences, physically and spiritually. You gotta get the gun thing and the Krav Maga, and you gotta pray. It's not one without the other. But the reality, if we think about it, if this is the Torah that Hashem wrote, which is the wisdom of this is Hashem's wisdom. And he looked into this book of the Torah and he created the world as is. And everything is being distilled from the Torah. Then it's really not about Jewish life. It's about humanity. Because in this Torah, there's no differentiation between the Jew and the not Jew as a person or as a being that's supposed to emulate Hashem. So when you come and you understand this war, we are fighting a different type of war. We're not fighting about the land. They couldn't care less about the land. They don't understand about the holiness of the land, because if they understood, they wouldn't do what they're doing. Not in Gaza and not inside of Israel. We realize that they're putting their trust and their faith in something that's completely foreign. So this is our responsibility, because society wants us to be people pleasing. It's teaching us against this behavior. So bitachon, we could see it that we could be confident, we could be humble, and at the same time we could walk confidently in serving Hashem. So now we see that we don't need to be subservient to any favors, anything that anybody else gives us. So now we're going to move forward. So if we go to page 12, and I'll ask someone to read page 12, where it says, "He will therefore," top of the page. Who would like to read?
He will therefore not consent to spend time with them on matters that are not related to the service of God.
Continue.
Not be afraid of their wicked behavior, the repercussions of not flattering them, and he will not be fearful of their arguments with him.
It means we don't care about what the other one says. We don't care about social media. Obviously, you care if you're doing something against Hashem. But if you are in the right of what Hashem commanded us for, then you have nothing to excuse yourself. No explanation needed. No excuse needed. Okay? So we see from here that we are 100% okay if somebody else disagrees with different point of view than they have from us. So basically, we're not compromising our value system, our beliefs, and our actions in order to fit the general population or the general opinion. We'll stay strong in whatever we believe, and we're going to work strongly with those values in mind. So we see why, because we know that the $2 million are not coming from our friends. It's not going back to what he's speaking about, which is money as the tool. It's not coming from anything else but Hashem. It's only Hashem, and it's that connection. So if we read on, rather, anybody else would like to read?
Rather, he will divest himself from their favors and from the bother of being gracious to them, as well as from the obligation to pay them back for any good they do to him. If he needs to rebuke them, he will not need to be careful of offending their honor. And if he needs to shame them while rebuking them, he will not be embarrassed, and he will not praise their false ways.
So now we have covered that in this book is what is the journey, and we have gone through the introduction, right? We're almost finishing the introduction, and it's funny because it's taking us so many weeks to finish the introduction. And the reason is because the same way that you have a zip file in Rosh Hashanah, and I mentioned this once before, the introduction is the zip file that we're going to now bring down and break it down into how to behave, into how to live Jewishly, in how to deal with the times, in how to strengthen our bitachon, in how to not to be other-centered and think that they have any say or in what I do or don't do, right? And if you think about it, we see this also in an important place in the Torah is with health. And for those of you who follow natural health, there's a very well-known person. Her name is, it's going to come. No, she does mantras to heal herself. Louise Hay. If anybody read the story of Louis Hay, and I'll explain. Louise Hay went to the doctor, and the doctor told her, "Sorry, you're gonna die. It's terrible. No, your future, no hope." He told her whatever was wrong with her, what she did. She went away. She went to California. She stayed by the water. She took time to this, and she started doing a lot of mental work and eating healthy and a lot of affirmations. For I don't remember how long. I started many years ago. And then she comes back to her doctor, and her doctor says, "I don't understand what happened. You're fine." To a point that she's still alive, right? So I'm talking to you, this is like 40 years ago. It's not Torah everything based, but I do believe I've seen a lot of good from the work that she did, right? So even your health, a person could go to a doctor and the doctor would say this, and the reality, the how you call it, statistics, right? My father, Zichrono Bracha, at an old age, being a heavy smoker for most of his life, was diagnosed, unfortunately, with pancreatic cancer at his late age. And what the doctors say? The regular. Why they take the family in a room? They say, "Sorry, it's going to be 2-3 months." My father lived over 2 years. Healthy, walking around, right? He was not in a hospital bed. So can you really put your trust in anything else at Hashem? And the answer is no. So now we're going to turn into a special analogy that is famous in this sefer and is very telling. And this, what we're going to read for the next few pages, is the idea of the alchemist. Does anybody know what an alchemist is? Yes, no?
He can transform metals into gold.
Whoa, great. Someone, go ahead. Someone would transform metal into gold. Basically, I go to my kitchen, I take my stainless steel pot, and I make gold out of it. Never could do that. Don't Midas. Huh? Midas. Okay, so now he's going to speak about the alchemist. And the next 10 things we're going to speak is going to relate to the alchemist. So if you go to page on your book, and you see how I'm going to be jumping from one to the other word for 2 seconds, in the end of the introduction on page 25, you're going to see on the bottom that it says the material, is going to say the alchemist, and then it's going to say trust in God. Is the difference with the person who is an alchemist, who believes he could go into his kitchen and get metals and make gold, and the person who is a Baal Bitachon, the person whose only channel of connection is Hashem. Okay? So we see here, you're going to see, the first one is material. So the alchemist worries how to maintain material for his work. The person who has Bitachon, God will find a way for me. Is uprooting the false beliefs that has to do with our parnasa and bringing it into a God-centered parnasa. It's two different worlds. And it's interesting because when a person really internalizes that everything you own and you have comes from the hand of Hashem, you start behaving differently, but you also start feeling differently. Because I no longer have to chase something. Whatever is mine is meant to come, it's going to come for me. And you could apply that to every level: who I'm going to marry, what children I'm going to have, which school they're going to end up, how am I going to pay for tuition, where I'm going to live. And any other problem that comes to your life is being channeled now through a greater place that is God bound and not me or other bound. So now we turn into this analogy of the famous, it's a famous analogy of the book. So if anybody says that you learn Shaar Bitachon and the person says, I don't know what an alchemist is, you have to say, oh, you got to go read back the book. So why is speaking of an alchemist to begin with? So he explained in Rabbeinu Bachya, he's telling us that there are 10 benefits of trust, and this is how we're going to benefit for us. And I gave you the 10 benefits on this one, part spiritual from material, and I explained those. But now I'm going to move for a minute into the next one. So the next one, the third benefit, and if you see number 3 on your page, it says peace of mind and serenity. Now, how easy is for you to have peace of mind and serenity? Truly. I take you right now to a 3-hour yoga class. Are you going to be really calm and not? Or are you going to be thinking, I have to do this, I have to call the other one, I forgot, my kid, right? You're going to be all over the place. Try to pray for 5 minutes. Are you really centered? Thank you, Hashem, for my eyesight. No, you are like, oh, I forgot to call, right? So the third benefit is peace of mind and serenity, meaning that we can focus on spirituality and not in something that is physical. That is the biggest distraction because we live in a material world. So we are sent by God to harness the power of this physical world. And the way we have to do it is through bitachon. We don't have to have an emotional attachment to money. It's not something about emotional, oh, my money, which is interesting because if you think about it, most of the fights between husbands and wives revolve about what? Money, the use of money. So money is not this little tool that Hashem gave us and I just go work for it and I come home. Money has a lot of emotional charge. And it's interesting because a lot of the times the fights, tremendous fights, have started with money and you end in a different page 3 days later. You don't even know why you started, but it really starts with money. Why? Because it's the biggest distraction because we're material beings, that we're bound with material things. So I hope that you enjoy